やっほー皆さんこんにちは、さちです。今日は私が普段どんな風に日本語を勉強しているかお話ししようと思います。日本語の勉強ってさ、私にとってはもう日課ものなんです。最近時間があるから効率的に勉強を進められて嬉しいです。というわけで早速どんな風に勉強しているか紹介していきますね。Hello everyone, this is Sachi and this is my Japanese self-study routine in 2024. So my Japanese study routine is designed for my current level as an intermediate. However, if you are looking into study routines, it is also applicable for beginners such as N5 or N4 after learning hiragana and katakana. Let's talk about schedule first and foremost. Before, I used to study Japanese longer than I do now, but because I've already covered the basics and a lot has been happening recently, I figured that 1 to 2 hours per day is already sufficient for me. I usually begin around 9 a.m. after running some chores and doing some work. I take advantage over this period of time because I have classes that start around 12 p.m. I have short breaks in between until I officially end the session around 10:30 or 11 a.m. to prepare lunch. Oftentimes, I don't get to finish everything in that span of time, which results to me just continuing them in the afternoon after classes. じゃあどうやって日本語を勉強するの? I actually have 2 study routines, not just 1, but 2. This is because my days are different from one another. On some days, I'd be busy, some days, I'd be less busy. And so I catered 2 study routines that would fit both cases. Let's talk about study routine number 1, which is for less busier days. This consists of 3 subparts, which is immersion, verbalizing, and review or active recall. 1番目 30 minutes to 1 hour of immersion. Immersion is when you actively or passively consume your target language. I do mine by watching YouTube videos, watching anime or drama, listening to my favorite songs, and reading manga. So by doing immersion, this is where I can pick up most of the vocabulary that I want to know. The reason for this is because there are words that Japanese natives use that don't really appear on textbooks. For instance, slangs, colloquialism that is often utilized and expressed in conversations. Additionally, you also have the chance to choose what kind of content you want to absorb. It's also much more entertaining and fun than just reading a catalog of vocabulary that aren't really being used in context. もちろん初心者なら perhaps it is preferable to start that way, learning vocabulary through JLPT lists or online lists where commonly used verbs are grouped together, adjectives used in daily conversation, etc., etc. その勉強仕方も大推薦します。Now, alongside watching a YouTube video, for instance, I will employ shadowing. You've probably heard of this before. Shadowing. This is when you repeat after words or phrases that you hear in a medium that you are watching. So how this works is it helps with pronunciation, pitch accent, and also aids you in recognizing sentence patterns. Okay, I'll show you an example. 珍しく夜に撮影しています。本当にお疲れ様でした。皆さん、今日はこれをやろうと思います。こんな感じです。もう一度もっと明確な動画にします。
今日はピクニックしながらちょっとみんなとお話ししたいことがあったよ。
ちょっとみんなとお話ししたいことがあって。
みんなを集めたんですよ。
みんな集めたんですよ。
何を話したいかっていうと。
本当来ないで。本当来ないで。こんな感じです。まあ最初はバカになるみたい。でも本当に役に立ちます。はい。So, aside from shadowing, I also take note of the vocabulary that I am learning. But the thing is, I don't take note of every single unfamiliar word. I only focus on words that I think will be useful for conversations that I frequently talk about. And I normally type the words or phrases on my notes app first, and then I'll briefly transfer them onto a physical notebook so that I have a documentation of all the words that I'm learning and I can review them later on. When I do immersion, I try my best to also critically analyze the sentences and the structure of words. It's going to be hard. Actually, it was extremely hard. For the most part, I was only passively listening to Japanese, and I remember the first year, I never really paid attention to the structure of words, which is fine too. I still did learn quite a bit, and I got accustomed to specific sounds that I normally wouldn't hear in other languages that I speak already. But passive listening works as well in the beginning, as it eventually leads you to memorizing the flow of the language. 2番目, verbalizing. This is so crucial. Verbalizing is where you either speak or write what you know. But what if you don't know anything? For speaking, I use HelloTalk. This app, you can meet a lot of natives there and make friends. I have a lot of embarrassing moments there, which still haunts me to sleep. But I think if I hadn't went on that app, I wouldn't be able to practice my Japanese that much. Even as I talk to myself in Japanese, it's still good for me to make conversations because I will be able to exercise what kind of responses to come up with and so on. So you can do a one-on-one or a group type of conversation, but self-talking is also an effective method, which I personally love doing. I have a dedicated time in my day where I only think in Japanese, describe my surroundings in Japanese, and when I find myself unable to say something, I will quickly look it up and list it down on my notes. I also use this app, HiLocal, for asking real native speakers on how to say this in Japanese, and I find the responses there extremely authentic. And then lastly is writing. Nikki o kaku koto. Writing in Japanese is so hard. Why? Why is the script so difficult? I do know kanji, but every time I try to write something, I find myself not able to do it without having a dictionary with me, because I need to look up the stroke orders for kanji that apparently my hand doesn't remember how to write. But actually, you don't even have to handwrite them. I just handwrite them for a weird purpose. I just like the mutual exchange that I have with a pen and physical paper, but you can do it digitally as well. Then after I journal, I post my entries on HelloTalk or HiLocal to have my grammar corrected. Nowadays, you can use AI as well, although it is more credible when a real person checks your work. 3番目, 25 to 30 minutes of reviewing or active recall. So making my own flashcards are time consuming. I don't really have the patience to go through a deck of 500 cards. Maybe that's just me. If I do that, I'll be squirming and fidgeting and it'll take the whole morning. I do believe that it's important that you keep yourself engaged rather than sticking to a more challenging activity. You are more likely to learn from what entertains or interests you. In my case, I make my own spaced repetition, where my Japanese commonplace book comes very handy. I've only started switching to this method recently, and the intervals to review each page don't really matter, but typically I review 3 to 5 pages each day, from the oldest to the newly added ones, and I place a bookmark to know exactly where I stopped. Then I'll continue the same process over and over, increasing the amount of pages to review as I add in more words. So now let's move on to the second routine. This routine is done under 4 hours, normally on a weekend, and consists of grammar lessons, JLPT mock tests, and kanji flashcards. 1番目, bunpo, an hour of grammar lessons. So for the first 25 minutes, I would review last week's material. This is my notebook for grammar, and this one is for vocabulary. The vocabulary one is more portable, and it's what I read the most. It's what I read daily. I will review last week's material first, and then when I'm ready to study new material, I will be going on YouTube, watch JLPT N3 grammar playlists. My favorite creators for that one is Game Gengo and Nihon no Mori. 2番目, JLPT mock test, also for an hour. So for the mock tests, I actually focus on listening and reading comprehension. These are the areas that I struggle the most. So for reading comprehension, I do online practice tests, and for the electronic textbook, Somatome, And for listening practice, again, that is also on YouTube. I will look up playlists to listen to, and then I will answer them on my own. 3番目。漢字です。So I mentioned that I don't like flashcards, but for kanji, I don't think there is a much more entertaining way to learn kanji, so I just push myself to actively study it and not complain. For this, I do use Anki. I haven't explored other resources or other methods to learn kanji besides flashcards, and I'm probably contradicting myself, but it's only for kanji, I swear. When I learn kanji, I don't just remember each character on its own, I learn it alongside vocabulary. I do that or else it's never gonna stick in my mind. I won't remember the character ever again. So there you have it. That is how I normally study Japanese. Some people study longer than 4 hours, and another set of people may think that it's too long. For me, 2 to 4 hours of studying is just right, as there are so many topics to cover. We need to remember that it is a language that we are learning here. I love saying this so much, but learning a language is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. You really need to put in great amounts of effort in order to reach a level that you want to. I'd like to point out as well that studying less doesn't necessarily mean that it's studying smart or it's more efficient than studying for longer periods of hours. Sure, you can study smart, not hard, but I think that's only routine for people who hold other activities more dear to them than spending 4 hours to sit and study. Also, if they have errands or agendas wherein they badly need to rush out the door, then I think 1 hour of studying a language is reasonable, which is absolutely okay. You have the freedom to choose that too. We all work in different ways, but I don't think we should be shamed for studying for longer hours. The saying goes, never be afraid to be the man who spends more effort, which I think speaks so much volume. 私にとってしかないね。But as an ending advice, open your mind and always keep yourself curious about everything you are hearing. Having a designated schedule where you intentionally immerse yourself in Japanese is merely to make sure that you are at least studying consistently every day. If you can, don't stop consuming the language until your day ends. Have multiple immersion within your day as much as possible. Read articles, read the lyrics of your favorite Japanese songs, play a podcast or series in the background while doing chores. You can't learn a language if you don't have an impossible goal. This routine was not developed overnight. Be nice to yourself and celebrate each small progress, but always remember why you began this journey and envisage where you want to see yourself on its far end. So that would be everything so far. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to pick up some tips from my experience. Good luck with your language learning journey. はい、この動画が気に入ったらぜひグッドボタンを押してください。好きな部分もコメント欄に教えてね。最後まで見てくれて本当にありがとうございました。サシでした。また今度ね。じゃじゃん。やっほー皆さんこんにちは。YouTube みたいなんて無理だよ。やっほー皆さん。どうやって in the flow of the language. Good luck na lang sa pag-edit sa akin. I think I should have prepared water. Should I get some water? That is everything so far. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Why do I say it like that?